I'm not quite sure why I'm sat down here in this corner today. I know it's not the best for light. I just fancied having a bit of a mix-up, so here I am. But hello everyone, I hope you're doing well today. I hope you're looking after yourselves, and oh my goodness, I really hope you're staying safe. I have been so genuinely excited to make this video. This is the fourth weirdest plants video I've made now. It's turned into a little bit of a mini series on my channel. And today I've got 10 more amazing, super weird, super cool, very unusual plants to take you through. And I'm really looking forward to it. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learnt over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And yeah, as I say, there are some really, really special plants on this list today, many of which I've only just discovered myself. So yeah, I really hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. So, as always, thank you so much to those of you that sent in suggestions for this video. Pretty much all of the plants you're going to see in today's video have been made up of plants that you guys have suggested. Yoli, what are you doing? Hello, baby. Oh, that's a very big stretch. In fact, I will put a clip in so you can see Yoli right now because she's literally just behind the camera and it's adorable. But yeah, thank you so much. Please keep the suggestions coming. Comment them down below. Drop me a message on Instagram, whatever floats your boat. And the only other thing I will say as well before I start showing you the plants is, as I say, this is the fourth in a little mini series that I've started with these weird plant videos. I have created a playlist for them now. So the whole playlist with all of these videos on is down below this video. So if you want to go and watch them all, then by all means do. But I'm going to shuffle over so I can put all the plants here. But the first plant is the Aliccia Venom, and this one is commonly known as the bird poop Aliccia. And this is one that I had never heard of, I'd never seen before, and oh my god, it is so weird. It's so weird, and it's a very unusual, deemed very rare plant here in the UK. All of the things that you'll be seeing here will be from Instagram, but I've said it in other videos before, often because some of these plants are so unusual, there isn't a lot on Instagram yet. Sometimes if you go and do a Google, you'll be able to kind of find better pictures and information. So yeah, just for copyright reasons, I have to use Instagram and not Google pictures. But I did some digging on this type of Aliccia, and it's actually a rare mutation of the Aliccia amazonica, which is one that, especially here in the UK, you do see about quite a lot. It's not a particularly expensive one to buy. You commonly see it in garden centres, houseplant shops. So obviously this rare mutation was produced, and then someone thought, oh, that's interesting. Let's get that into tissue culture. Let's clone that plant and make lots of money from it. And it is incredibly expensive. I was having a look about, and it's not that readily available here in the UK. The only one I could see was a corm, just literally a little corm, a little seed essentially of this plant going for £300. So obviously that's not the cheapest. And to be honest, looking at it, for me personally, I think it's quite beautiful. It's obviously very unusual. I definitely wouldn't be willing to spend £300 on a corm, and I'm not sure it's the type of Aliccia for me, to be honest. I think it just looks a little bit ill, and to be honest, I often think that, I definitely don't always think that, but I often think that with certain types of variegated plants, like if I see certain types of variegated anthuriums, I often think just look a bit sickly and a bit unwell, and looking at this one, it kind of gives me those vibes. That's not to say it's not lovely, because some of the pictures I'm seeing here are utterly gorgeous. Other ones I'm just like, oh dear, what's happened to you? So yeah, as I say, rare mutation of the Aliccia amazonica. That one is native to various regions of South America. So as with lots of Aliccias, I've got hundreds of Aliccias in my collection, but knowing what I know about the genus and knowing what I know about the Aliccia amazonica, I would say it would like bright and direct light, fairly high levels of humidity. There is a chance as well that because it is a fairly new tissue culture plant, it could be a little bit more susceptible to disease and fungal issues and stuff like that. So if I was getting this plant, would probably be keeping it in my cabinet, for example, somewhere with lots of light, lots of heat, lots of humidity. But as I say, I haven't grown the plant myself, so I can't know for sure. Also, if any of you do have these plants, some of these are just so bizarre, I would be really intrigued to know what your experience with them is. So again, oh, there was just a massive bang, I don't know what that was. But again, please let me know in the comments. But then the next one is the Areospermum titanopsoides. I'm not going to say I'm going to pronounce all of these names right. I will put the names on the screen. But this one is such a bizarre one. When I first saw this, to me, the first thing that sprung to mind was, you know, when you see like close-ups of bacteria and stuff under a microscope, it almost looks like that. Like if somebody told me that the image of this plant was taken from a microscopic image, I would totally believe them. And I've just pasted a quote in here that says, Areospermum is a fascinating and varied South African bulb species that grows well in sandy, well-draining soil, in a sheltered sunny spot, in a greenhouse or pot. And funnily enough, seeing this plant, I was like, is this one that can be grown like in a home environment? Should it be grown in a home environment? And I did actually see quite a lot of them for sale, not here in the UK, but in the US, you can get bulbs for between $30 and $70. I don't know if that's deemed to be a good price or not. I don't also know if it's one that I would go for, just because by the looks of it, although it's very unusual, I don't know how rewarding a plant like this would be to grow for me personally. So it's not one that I'd jump at, but I do think it's very, very cool. Also, it does produce tiny little flowers that from the pictures that I saw almost look like little snowdrops. And again, they're very pretty, but I don't know, it almost looks like a weird warped jelly bean. One of the photos I'm looking at is it kind of really up close and it almost looks like it's covered in little crystals of sugar. But yeah, for me, as I say, I don't think it's one that I particularly have the desire to grow right now, at least. But who knows, things might change further down the line. Oh my goodness, and this next one is absolutely amazing. And again, I have no idea if I'm even going to be able to find Instagram pictures on this plant. So if I can't, please go and Google it. It's so gorgeous. But it is the Corybas circinatus. I really wish I could pronounce these names better. But it's commonly known as the helmet orchid. And this one was very recently discovered. And in fact, it was only photographed for the first time in 2007, which really wasn't that long ago at all in the grand scheme of things. And it's native to the island of Palawan, which is in the Philippines. And I say native, it is in fact endemic, which means that currently it has only been found growing in that place. I don't think, and the people who discovered it don't think it's currently growing naturally anywhere else in the world. And it's just the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful plant. Its leaves almost look quite anthurium-like. Like it's got the dark velvetiness with the veination that almost reminds me of like a clarinervium or something like that, but its veination looks to be very flat and it's bright pink. It almost looks like it's been drawn on with like a sparkly pink gel pen or something like that. But then these weird little flowers that it produces as well. I mean, hence the name helmet orchid, but I don't know, they're just like, I'm also not typically an orchid person, but this looks just like, it almost looks like a beautiful, colourful moth that's landed on the leaf. I know that's a weird thing to say, but it's just incredible. And looking at, again, one of the pictures that I'm looking at from Google here, you can see it almost vines and climbs. Honestly, like I very much doubt, it probably won't surprise you to find out that this plant is a protected species, not for sale. But if this plant at any point was able to be safely and obviously in a, I can't think of any other way of saying it apart from a non-poachy way, because obviously plant poaching is a massive, massive, massive issue. If it was able to be cloned, for example, put into tissue culture and still conserved in its natural habitat and brought over to the UK, this is something that I would be extremely keen to grow. I think it's just stunning. But then again, as I say, this is a plant that obviously is native to the Philippines. It's growing beautifully there. It's wonderful. It is so amazingly, mind-blowingly magical to me that we are still to this day discovering new species. I mean, it's not mind-blowing really, because obviously there is just so much we don't know and things are so vast, but this is just such a gorgeous type of plant. I'm also pretty sure I read somewhere, I didn't make a note of it, but I'm pretty sure in the Corybas genus, I'm pretty sure there are actually only 2 types of plants in there, I think. But yeah, I think it's just stunning. I don't need this plant. I absolutely don't need this plant. There are plenty of plants that would tick the same box. I think just because I'd never seen anything quite like it before, it made me go, oh my God, I want it. But yeah, as I say, it is protected and it's so beautiful. And then this next one is a Drosera, and if you've watched my previous Weird Plants videos, we've seen a few Drosera so far, but this one is a Drosera squamosa. Also, some of these names are actually phonetic. I'm just highly dyslexic. But it's a sundew and it's absolutely beautiful. It originates from southwestern Australia and it is, again, a carnivorous plant. And just looking at it, if you look at it up close, you can see all of those little kind of, I mean, I was going to say sundewy drops, the little kind of droplets of, I guess they're like sap or nectar that draw the insects in and lure them in and then catch them. But one thing I was really surprised to know with this type of Drosera, which actually makes me think that maybe it could be found also growing in the UK, is that it can actually take light frost, which is crazy. I don't know why, like just looking at something like that, I think because it looks so vibrant and tropical, you wouldn't necessarily think it would do particularly well in lower temperature conditions. But if I do remember correctly, actually, one of the Drosera from, I think, my last video, somebody here in the UK did comment and said, I live quite close to like boggy wasteland and we get a lot of those growing there. And that really surprised me. So yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And it does look, however, quite hard to come by. The only place that I could see in the UK, at least, selling this plant were just selling tubers for £40, which I think it's quite expensive. Apparently as well, it's not a particularly fast plant to grow. It often only grows a couple of new leaves throughout the entire growing season. So I guess maybe that is why it is that little bit more expensive if it is quite a slow growing plant. But nonetheless, it's absolutely gorgeous. I can see a picture of it here as well, of it flowering, and its flowers are stunning. So stunning. Oh, and then this next one, this might be one of the weirdest plants I've had in this series so far. It is amazing, and a few of you actually sent this my way. It is the Monotropa Uni Flora, which is commonly known as the ghost plant or ghost pipe. And this one's native to Asia and North America, and the name Monotropa is Greek for one turn, and Uniflora is Latin for one flowered. And basically, if you have a look at the pictures, you'll be able to see why. It is just one stem for one flower. But the amazing thing about this plant, although it is classified as a plant, and I believe it's actually weirdly enough in the blueberry family, it doesn't require any chlorophyll at all to grow. And just by looking at it, you'll be able to see it's a very vibrant white colour. It doesn't need any chlorophyll, which means that the plant doesn't photosynthesize in the same way as a typical houseplant does. It doesn't actually need any sunlight at all. It can grow in complete darkness, and it actually gets all of its nutrients from underground fungi systems, so mycelium in the earth. If you watch my videos, you'll have heard me bang on about mycelium before because it connects absolutely everything in nature. It is incredible. I'm going down a wormhole here, but this is why I bang on about creating a symbiotic relationship in your home and not using harsh chemicals or pesticides and supporting your soil health and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's just a really remarkable plant, and it's one that I had never heard of before. And weirdly enough, it appears to be being sold, so not actually to grow here in the UK. It appears to be being sold as a herb, and I couldn't find out that much about it, but I think I get the impression that it might be used in, I don't know, maybe homeopathy or Asian medicine of some sort. I don't know, and I don't know what its uses are, so if you do know a bit more about this, then please comment it below. But it is just the most incredible looking thing. Like, I don't know, like, as I say, pictures will be there, assuming there are Instagram pictures of this one, because it's just so weird. Yeah, it's just so weird, but it's almost like, I don't know, there's something very angelic and otherworldly about it. Again, I feel like I've said it before in these videos when I've been talking about weird and wonderful plants, but if you were to see something like this pop up in Avatar, for example, you'd be like, oh yeah, of course it's from that world. It doesn't quite feel like it should be from ours. So yeah, it's amazing. And then another very weird one is the Dendrobium Cucumum, which is commonly known as the cucumber or gherkin orchid. And this one, I don't quite know how I feel about this one. So I don't have trypophobia, which is the fear of holes, I don't think. But there's something about the bumpy texture, and I think because they're quite small bumps and there's lots of them bunched together in the pictures that I'm looking at, it just makes me a little bit uncomfortable. And this one is native to Eastern Australia, and it won't surprise you to learn that the name of the plant is derived from the Latin word cucumis, meaning cucumber. And as with many orchids, it is another epiphyte, and this one, I think it's a climbing epiphyte, which is like, if you have a look at it in its natural habitat, I saw lots of pictures of it kind of going up the side of trees and stuff like that, and it can grow to be quite tall. But when I say epiphyte, as I say, with many orchids or plants within that kind of cultivar bracket, epiphytic plants typically don't grow out of the ground. They actually get their nutrients from growing attached to other plants, rocks, you name it. In their natural habitats, they will grip on and they will usually feed that way. Hence why growing them in very barky mixes and stuff like that, as opposed to in soil, is usually very good for them. But this one is actually a little bit more, if you did want to get something like this for yourself in a UK home environment. In fact, I say UK, I saw this popping up kind of all over the place. I know in the States you can get this quite easily as well. But baby plants start at around the £20 mark. And when I say baby plants, some of them didn't even really have leaves yet. They were teeny tiny. It's not one that I have any desire to add to my collection. I think I'm not a huge orchid person anyway. I'm kind of trying to come around to them a little bit. I know I've got some friends that are very into orchids and I appreciate them in their collections, but I'm just not quite ready to take the leap with my own collection yet. So yeah, I think it's cool though. I think it is a cool one. And I think any plant that can make you go like, huh, or evoke a strange reaction, is worthy of this video, so thank you to whoever suggested that one. And then this next one is another one that has been suggested so many times and I just haven't featured yet, but it is the Colano de Goniana. And this one has many common names. It's commonly known as Devil's Backbone, Mother of Thousands, and the Alligator Plant. It did have more names, but those are the most common ones. And you can see pretty much why it has all of those common names. The Mother of Thousands, obviously all of the little things you can see over its leaves are essentially pups and they can all produce a brand new plant. So it probably won't surprise you that it has been introduced to many countries. It's originally native to Madagascar, but now it does grow all over the place. And actually the second photo I'm looking at of this plant is when it's much taller, and then I can see exactly how it got its name Devil's Backbone, because it does look like a creepy, horrible spine. Whoops-a-daisy, I got carried away chatting and my camera died, so I just had to take a moment and change the battery. But back to this weird plant. It thrives in arid, rocky environments and is very drought tolerant. And just from looking at this plant, I feel like you can kind of tell that. It looks incredibly succulent. It's also worth saying this one is apparently incredibly toxic, and lots of the plants that I've shown you today are toxic. A lot of plants just are. Houseplants, outdoor plants, tropical plants. A lot of plants are toxic, but every single part of this plant is toxic, and I saw it in several places come with a little warning. So if you've got pets, children, it's one that I would actually, and it's rare I say this, a lot of the time I say, oh, just keep it up high. It's one that I would probably be a little reluctant to have in the same space as them, just because it looks like it sheds babies very easily. And also, probably won't surprise you, but it's considered an invasive species in certain parts of the world as well, because again, I think it just kind of propagates as it goes because it's got all of those little babies all over it. And also, again, won't surprise you to know that it is, because of how easily propagatable it is very cheap to buy and very accessible. I typed it in and I had ones coming up for kind of £2-3 as starting prices. So yeah, I mean, maybe I don't like the idea of it constantly shedding little babies everywhere. I also think, knowing myself, I would feel quite bad throwing them away, so I'd probably end up with literally thousands. But yeah, it's one that I think is very cool, and if it wasn't toxic, or as toxic as it is, maybe I'd consider it, but I don't know, maybe also I'm just saying that I don't think it's the plant for me, basically. Oh, but then I have got a seriously weird one. This is such a strange plant, and I've had this one on the list for a little while and I haven't included it because there's been lots of weird plants, but this one is the Chia Mirmirabus, and it's commonly known as the living fossil. And this one, again, if I can find some Instagram pictures, I'll put them there, but it's native to Namibia and Angola. And so I've made so many notes for this one because I feel like there's so much to say about it, but I will start with, I'm going in a completely random order, but on average, in their natural habitat, they live to be between 500 and 600 years old. That's just on average. However, some have been predicted to be as old as 2,000 years, which is just insane. It's absolutely crazy, especially looking at it. It kind of just looks like a pile of green banana skins, and from what I've read up on it as well, it doesn't actually grow that tall. I think the tallest one ever to be logged was about 1.8 meters, which actually, considering something that's been growing for 2,000 years, you'd think it would be a little bit taller than that. But an adult plant typically just consists of 2 leaves, a stem, a base and roots. And it's really unusual with this plant because it doesn't shed leaves in the same way as pretty much every other plant that I've got in my collection at least does. It doesn't cycle at all. So the leaves that you see, the 2 big leaves that you'll see on the plant, are actually the ones that it's had since it was a seedling, and they've just grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. Kind of like, I mean, it's actually, no, it's not the same at all. I was going to say kind of like how an anthurium leaf will come in quite small and then grow and grow and grow. But it's not like that because these ones just keep growing forever. So yeah, that kind of blew my mind. And also, this type of plant is thought to have evolved around the same time as dinosaurs, hence why it is known as the living fossil. And although you can also, sorry, this is just a weird thing, you can also buy this plant, you can grow this plant in a home environment. And although it's very cool, I'm just like, why would you want to? Editing Claire jumping in for a second. When I researched for this video, I had pretty much exclusively seen photos of this plant growing in its natural habitat. But when I looked on Instagram, when I was putting this video together, I saw so many pictures of what it could look like as a houseplant. So therefore, I take back everything I'm about to say, and I have actually added this plant to my wish list. Yes, okay, it's amazing to think of the prospect of the plant and the fact that it would almost definitely outlive you with the right amount of care, and probably outlive the next 6 or 7 generations of your family. But unless it's the thought of that that kind of gets you going, I don't see who would look at this and be like, oh wow, that's a lovely plant, because it doesn't look that nice. I think it's really amazing, and that's why it's on this list. But again, this is all my personal opinion. I wouldn't want to grow this plant. However, it is one that is not the easiest to get hold of, and you probably won't be surprised to learn that it does come with a fairly hefty price tag. The cheapest one that I could find, and it was a teeny little plug plant, started at around £145. And considering the size that we see there is probably 500-600 years old, you will be waiting a very long time to watch that plant size up. And in fact, if you get one that size, probably in your lifetime you won't get to see it reach a full size plant. Hello, Editing Claire again. So I've done a fair amount of digging since filming this video, and given the right conditions, this plant can actually size up and grow much faster than I initially thought. I've also become weirdly obsessed with this plant since filming, and have gone down a bit of an internet wormhole trying to find one for sale. Oops. But it blows my mind. It really does blow my mind. And to be able to think that some of the leaves that you see on this plant, if it is very old, like what those leaves have seen, what they've gone through, and like, yeah, it's really remarkable. It is. But then this is a fun one. And if you watched my either last one or the one before that one, Weird Plants video, you will have seen the lips plant, the lip succulent. That one freaked me out. I thought it was very weird. And this one is another lips looking plant. It is the Psychotria or Psychotria, maybe? Elata, which is commonly known as the hot lips plant. And this one's native to the rainforests of South America. And the lips that you see in the pictures are actually bracts which surround the flowers. And that means that they're basically like shield leaves, which is again very similar to when you see like an anthurium, for example, put out an inflorescence, sometimes with kind of the more I want to say like the more cheaper, more accessible kind of anthuriums that you'll often see in supermarkets. They often are known as flamingo flowers because they're very bright. They can be pink, they can be red, they can be orange. And those are very much the same as this. They are shield leaves. They can actually absorb light, they can photosynthesize, and they just kind of protect the flowers that are there. And so I assume it is the same thing with this plant. The really, really sad thing with this plant that I read up was that it has been massively impacted by deforestation as well as poaching. And I know I spoke about plant poaching earlier in this video, but for that reason, this plant is now endangered. And I know, as I say, I have spoken before on plant poaching before. This is why it is so important to make sure you're buying from a reputable seller, to know where your plants come from, because lots of these plants that are very desirable, like I say here in the UK, but wherever it is in the world, if you don't find them growing in your back garden, then they're going to probably come over from South America or Asia or loads and loads and loads of places that we don't have access to. And if somebody goes, oh, you know what, that thing over there growing 5 miles from my house, I could sell that and I can make a lot of money. Of course, you're going to go out and you're going to hunt and you're going to try and find them. And because of that, it means that a lot of plants will unethically enter the UK. And by purchasing those plants, this is why I say again, research your seller. By purchasing those plants, you are feeding the plant poaching problem. And it's really, really sad. I've got multiple plants in my collection now that are pretty much cultivated in a home environment because we humans have been part of the poaching that's gone on or the deforestation that's gone on. And yeah, for that reason, a lot of these plants, I mean, it just goes to show like why you really need to cherish your plants and protect them, because these issues are going on and we're not shown it in the same way as we are animal poaching, which is atrociously awful as well. But we don't have as many in your face kind of charities being like, this kind of plant is going to die out. And I think we just, as houseplant enthusiasts, need to remind ourselves of that and yeah, be very mindful about how we get our plants. Sorry, I know that was a tangent, but yeah, it has been wildly advertised as a good gift for Valentine's Day and stuff like that, which again really makes me so sad, because of course, like, you see something like this in the shops and it's coming up to like Valentine's Day, you go, oh my goodness, that would be amazing for this person, but it will probably be a little bit of a joke on the day and then that plant won't get the care that it needs. And so here we are. But it is a really cool plant. It's a really awesome plant. And it's also, interestingly enough, used in homeopathy and folk medicine too for earaches, coughs and skin irritation. Which I thought was very interesting. And it is being, so people are now trying to reintroduce it to its natural habitat. I think the hype, or from what I understand, the hype for this plant might have died out a little bit. It's one that I actually wasn't familiar with before one of you commented telling me about this plant. And I did have a look online and you can get seeds. You can get seeds of this plant for about £4. For me personally, I think it's quite cool, but it's not something that I have a deep desire to own. But yeah, this is just very weird. It really looks like lips. Like the other one really looked like lips, but this one's got like, I don't know, it's funny, isn't it? Like I've said it before, but how nature can kind of reflect in different things, like how the lines on the palm of our hand can often look like veins on a leaf, and like how there's all these kind of mirrors throughout nature. And yeah, that could literally be a pair of human lips. So yes. But then the last plant is one that actually I have put onto my wish list because I think it's so cool. It is the Oxalis palmifrons, which is commonly known as the miniature umbrella palm. And I am a little, not massively familiar with Oxalis as a genus, but I've had Oxalis triangularis before. In fact, Ross, pretty sure, still has one through in the bedroom. And I just think this one, like looking down on it, it literally looks like you're looking down on a forest of palm trees. It looks so pretty. But it's native to South Africa's northern and western Cape provinces. And something that I thought was really interesting about this one is that it's actually typically dormant in the summer months, so it will die back to just its bulbs, very similar to the Oxalis triangularis, although I do believe, I thought that went dormant in winter actually. I might be wrong about that. But yeah, dormant in the summer months, and then it comes back to life in the cooler autumn months. So I guess if you had one now in my country where I'm from, it would probably be starting to kind of put out new growth now. I did see that some people that owned the plant were saying as well that it is, as a house plant, possible to just kind of like tweak and adjust your conditions to keep it going all year round. But as I say, I've never owned this plant, so I'm not quite sure about that. It also does appear to be quite slow to grow, and it's more of a, like much more of a spreader than it is an upright grower, and it doesn't often grow beyond 10 centimetres in height, even at maturity. So I think it's probably one that, I don't know, would probably work quite well in like a nice decorative bowl or something like that. Again, I've seen lots of Oxalis triangularis grown in that way, and it looks lovely. And this one again, I mean, when I say relatively cheap to buy, it's not that cheap, but you can get them for about £25, which compared to some of the ones on this list is not awful. So yeah, it's not one that I feel like I'm in a desperate rush to go out and grab, but I think if I was to encounter one, I might be tempted by it because I just think it's very unusual and it's very cool. So yeah, those are the 10 for today. But as I say, I'm loving making these videos, and I'm fully committed to just making this into a full-on series now. So I'm probably going to try and do one every month, every couple of months. So if you've ever got weird suggestions for plants, please drop me a comment down below, send me a message, send me an email, whatever you fancy. But I would really love to know, because it's so fun for me getting to discover these plants and then getting to do a bit of research on them and chat about them with you guys. I honestly love it. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.
Stay sexy, plant lovers.